This is the RetroN 3. It was released in the far-off year of 2009, and it can play both NES, SNES, and Genesis games, all on composite, and nothing else. It's really not that great, to be honest.
And this is the RetroN 3 HD. This was released in 2020, or as I like to call it, the bad year. It's also a lot better. But I'm Jamie.
I'm Ellie.
And you spent $140 on this thing.
Yeah, I did, and it's mine.
But regardless, this is Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro, and today we are deciding, should you buy the RetroN 3 HD in 2021?
Also, should I have bought this in 2021?
Oh god, I hope so. That was $140.
Yeah, it was a lot of money and I have no other way to play the NES games I got.
The RetroN line of systems has been around for over a decade now. Created by Hyperkin, a company whose products are honestly rather hit or miss in quality, the RetroN 3, the original one, fiddly enough followed both the RetroN 1 and 2.
Those two systems aren't emulation boxes either. They're hardware clones of classic game systems that can play NES games or both NES and SNES games respectively. Admittedly, the compatibility is hit or miss, and their original models could only output S-video at best, but for retro games on a budget, they weren't a bad place to start.
Other systems by Hyperkin include the RetroN 77, which can play Atari games, the Superboy, which is a portable SNES, and the RetroN 5, which is an emulation box that can play NES, SNES, Genesis, Famicom, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. Admittedly, I used to own one of those things, and after having it die on me not once, but twice in the span of a few weeks, I opted not to get it exchanged yet again, and instead just got a full refund.
At least the Superboy is pretty good. This original one here is great, though it's kind of disgusting how they went for a 16:9 screen on the newer Superboy S. Like seriously, games made for an old school system that are stretched to fit a modern screen just look nasty.
The main system we're looking at today is the RetroN 3 HD. This is an update of that original RetroN 3 from 2009, which I actually own. This thing launched at $70 USD back in the day, though that price jumped to around $100 here in Canada. That said, it was a great way for me to enjoy some great classic titles back when I was living in a university dorm around 5 years ago or so.
Compare that to the RetroN 3 HD, which retails at $90 in the States and $140 up here respectively. That said, we gotta mention the main drawback to the original RetroN 3, and I don't mean the ugly design. That thing only outputs video over S-video or composite, standards which may not even be usable on many modern TVs.
Compare this to the HD model, which while still capable of composite out, can also output games at a supposedly crisp 720p. Of course, how crisp this output actually is and whether or not games are scaled correctly or handled by the cloned NES, SNES, and Genesis on-a-chip hardware inside is to be seen.
For the sake of this video, we're not only going to dive into the RetroN 3 HD itself, but also compare it with the original system to see if that $40 price jump was justified.
We got a thing. I got a thing.
Alright, so this is what you get when you open it. You can see the console. But you lift the box open. Ooh.
I think there are cables in there.
No, the cables are under.
Oh, okay.
I already checked it. So this is the console itself. Let's just get it out of the box, or out of the plastic wrap. So pretty simple. You got your, I believe this is NES. Yeah, NES, Genesis, SNES. Right, SNES is the smaller one. It's got, you can see here, I think this is the SNES port. Mm-hmm. So that is actually what plugs into this, but I'm gonna get to this later. And then you've got your NES ports on the left. That. On the right, you've got your Genesis ports. So the idea is 2 controllers, maximum as was used in the consoles themselves. So I just need to check and see what it looks like. So micro USB, that's your power. This is your usual AV. If you're from the 90s, you know what the hell this is. HDMI port, which is the most important aspect of this thing because it allows you to play in HD. That's the whole thing. And then you've got this little thing which allows you to swap between the proper 4x3 and godless 16:9. If you use this option, I will find you and I will end you.
I don't think we can state enough how well built the system is. I mean, it doesn't feel as well built as, say, a Game Boy or an actual SNES, and you certainly won't be using it as a blunt weapon, but overall, it feels sturdy enough to weather a lot of use.
I also appreciate how there's both a power button and a system select switch here. In some of Hyperkin's other systems, they're combined into one, but this split here just makes the R3 HD feel much better built. For the NES, there's an option between NTSC and PAL. So the idea is this is a region-free system. You can use it with any region, and then, there's actually, SNES, same thing, NTSC, PAL, and then Genesis, it's got NTSC-J, NTSC-U, and PAL, because I guess there's a difference between the Japanese and the US/North American copies. It's very light. Very light. But it's not too light, if that makes sense. It feels like it's hefty. I love the see-through. I like that a lot. These are the controllers, so they've from what I've seen so far, they're a vast improvement over the last ones. So they're built on the SNES style. So if you want to play Genesis,
Well, there's a Genesis style one as well.
There is, but I wanted to get to that later. I was saving that as a surprise, Jamie.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
I'm
lusting after that see-through plastic.
So there's an NES/SNES one. It feels really good. It's got your buttons too, your triggers. It feels really nice, honestly. The other one we've got is the Genesis style. So this, obviously, you got your button, your start. Didn't have select, the Genesis?
No, just start.
But you got your A, your B, your C, your X, and Y, and Z. So we say Z here. I think this just comes down to, it feels like a decent imitation of the Genesis controller. Mm-hmm. But this is also where I have to admit, this D-pad, mistake. I don't like it.
The controllers here aren't actually half bad. And I'm not just saying that because they have 10-foot long cables. I certainly wish they were a little weightier, but I found the Genesis style one in particular to feel nice enough over an extended series of play sessions. I appreciate how they went with a 6-button style Genesis controller here instead of a 3-button style as well. And those grips on the back actually make it way comfy in the hand as well. It has really good hand feel.
But the SNES one is, well, actually it's pretty damn good. The buttons and D-pad don't feel as good as an official pad, but I do prefer its feel over that of an NES controller. And yes, you heard that right. You can't do things like play Genesis games with the SNES pad or whatever, but the R3 HD does come with an adapter that allows SNES controllers to be used on NES consoles.
After testing, I can confirm it works great even with official controllers. I like how it maps B and A on the NES controller to Y and B respectively on the SNES pad. This allows for games to be played rocker style, which I find especially so comfortable for titles such as the Mega Man games.
It should go without saying as well that original controllers work no problem here either. And though the original RetroN 3 did ship with wireless controllers, they used a finicky 2.4 GHz variety of wireless connectivity, which is absolutely not ideal.
Is there anything else in the box?
There's the wires, so... Well, there's also an instruction manual. I want you to guess what that does. Then, this has all the cables you need. We've got a AV, plug that in here, and now it works as a NES controller, which is genius, at least in my opinion. I'm gonna keep that there. Power block.
They actually shipped with the power brick.
Yeah, it's a very, I mean, I call it more of a block than a brick. Like, look at how tiny this is, like used for a free charger. And there's that. HDMI to HDMI. You know what an HDMI to HDMI is. It's 2021. And that is the whole collection.
I also absolutely love the look of this thing. It also has a nice little notch on the side with a blue Hyperkin light that comes on when in use, along with blue LEDs that denote what system is turned on. I really like that touch.
Nicest of all, unlike the RetroN 5, which could only have one cartridge in at a time, you can have all the slots full on the R3 HD and switch between games no problem. But of course, what matters most here is how it plays games. So let's see how it fares there.
We tried over 40 games with the R3 HD to determine total compatibility to the best of our abilities. And This thing is actually pretty robust.
The RetroN 3 HD is completely region-free. The SNES slot can fit European SNES and Super Famicom games, and the Genesis slot can fit Mega Drive games, and there's even region switches on the bottom for any games that need it. You can even play Famicom games on it through a converter.
And on the topic of Famicom games, yup, that even includes the Famicom disk system. So for any of you who are craving playing Zelda off of a floppy disk, that option is available here. Just as long as you have an FDS on hand, of course.
The Super Game Boy for the SNES also works perfectly here. The only issue we encountered was a freeze while playing through Pokemon Silver version, though that may not have been the system's fault.
That said, not every add-on we tried works. For example, though the NES Game Genie fits in the cartridge slot, despite us trying 2 different units, we just couldn't get it to work.
It should go without saying that this thing doesn't support the Sega 32X or Sega CD add-ons for the Genesis.
Weirdly enough, the Sega Genesis power-based converter for Master System games is finicky here. Hell, it doesn't even work properly with Hyperkin's official Master System Game Gear converter for the RetroN 5. This has been tested and confirmed to work properly with Master System games on a real Genesis, by the way. But, as we can see here, the colors in the Master System games on the RetroN 3 HD are all completely wrong.
The color issue can actually be solved by flipping the switch under the Genesis slot into PAL mode, but this has the side effect of making games run at a slower speed, as if they were being played on a European Master System.
Basically, with Sega Master System stuff, it's a lose-lose. Also, just for kicks, we also tried Game Gear games via the RetroN 5 adapter, and those didn't work either. Though, to be fair, most of those won't work via the adapter on a real Genesis either.
Speaking of colors, I think we need to talk about how the games actually play here.
The R3 HD outputs in 720p, which would be a simple 3x scale from 240p. And, on Genesis games especially, it looks great, at least to my naked eye. Master System issues aside, the Genesis side of the RetroN works incredibly well, and these games look absolutely beautiful. It helps too that the Genesis sound emulation, or I guess replication here since it's a clone console, is near perfect as far as I can hear anyways.
On the SNES side, on the other hand, it looks serviceable and sounds excellent, but something perhaps looks a little off. The image just doesn't look as sharp as it could be, and ever so slightly stretched to me. I can't exactly place it though, and maybe it has something to do with the aspect ratio shenanigans, though neither Jamie or I have the means to truly dive into that here.
To our naked eyes though, things don't look perfect, but the games still have crisp colors, and I think they will look fine enough for the vast majority of retro games enthusiasts on a budget.
The weakest link here though is the NES. While the SNES side of things could perhaps be forgiven due to the price point, the NES side has some issues that I think are hard to forgive. For example, most of the colors look absolutely fantastic. However, certain shades of yellow and orange just look off. Take a look at Mario's sprite in Super Mario Bros., for example, or even the ground in the starting area of The Legend of Zelda.
Also, while the sound on NES and Famicom games isn't the worst I've heard, it's really not as spot on as the other systems. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. It just sounds a bit tinny and off to me. I decided to dig into this issue a bit, and this is apparently a common problem with cheaper clone consoles. Without going too far into it, it has something to do with the pulse waves and the sounds in the NES games. To showcase this in action, here's Super Mario Bros. Being compared back to back with an emulator and the R3 HD.
Also, weirdly enough, the NES side of things wouldn't work with Tengen's Afterburner, which is odd, especially as it works on the original RetroN 3.
All the SNES carts with special chips inside of them that we tried worked fine. That includes Star Fox. However, we were unable to try out common Sega Genesis problem child Virtual Racing, which also contains special chips inside of it. We also didn't have any flash carts on hand to try with this system either, such as the Mega SD. Oh well, at least we confirmed that all the games on the 115.1 Famicom Mega Bootleg Multicart thing that I own works.
The final issue we've got to mention, and this really may be a deal breaker for some, is how tight the cartridge slots are, especially the Genesis slot. The NES and SNES slot seem to loosen up a bit after use, but that Genesis slot feels as though it's got a death grip on our carts. It actually worries me a bit.
The same goes for the SNES controller ports, which seemed a bit tighter than I would have liked. though I feel like much of this tightness may be solved with continuous use, and the overall experience here is still pretty good.
If you have the money for Omega SG, Analog NT, or even RGB capable original systems, then definitely go that route. But at the price of admission, even despite its faults, I'd say that if you're someone just getting into retro gaming like me, or who just wants a cheap way to record footage and live stream off of original cartridges, also like me, then this is a pretty good option. It's a good first stop for folks just getting into some retro stuff.
Besides, even with the aforementioned issues, things all around look sharper and crisper than on the original RetroN 3. Granted, that's probably because we aren't limited to just composite or S-video out here. There was no major input lag we could notice on the R3 HD, and the fact that it runs the vast majority of things we threw at it, even bootleg multi-cart Super FX games and even the Famicom disk system, makes it a formidable budget retro console. For a fairly low cost system that you can hook up over HDMI, while not the best, it's definitely a good deal.
It helps that this thing looks simultaneously like it's out of 1999 and 2019 as well.
So with that, that's it for this look on the RetroN 3 HD. Not the best clone console out there, not the best solution for playing your older games, but for the price, I think we can both agree it's pretty serviceable.
Yeah, I'm pretty content with it. Like, it's gonna get me to play all the games I want relatively accurately.
Plus, you can stream with it.
I can. And speaking of streaming, did you know that I stream on twitch.tv at _Callaway?
Why, I did. And I think you should especially plug all your socials because literally you made this video possible.
I don't find my Twitter. Please don't find my Twitter. Look at my Twitch though, twitch.tv/the_Callaway. I stream sporadically. I'll be streaming some retro games, I'll be streaming some not so retro games. I just play whatever I want, and you deal with it.
Yes, and of course, this is Stuff We Play. The names you're seeing going on screen right now are our Patreon patrons and our YouTube channel members who help make what we do here possible. Also, let me know, have you tried the RetroN 3 HD? What are your experience with Hyperkin's clone consoles or clone consoles in general? Let us know down in the comment section below. And while you're at, subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time. Got down to a science.
You really do.